Hare Krishna, dear devotees, my humble obeisances to you all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you all for joining His Holiness Candramauli Swami Maharaj's daily class. Today we are continuing with our Srimad Bhagavatam series of first canto, chapter 17, verse number 18. And we are Hare Krishna Maharaj, my humble obeisances to you, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you for your time and association for all of us. You can please take over, Maharaj. Hare Krishna. And may I request you to tilt your laptop screen a little bit downwards. We are not able to see you fully, Maharaj.
You're not missing anything.
Okay, thank you.
Which way? This, back or front? This way?
Yeah. That's good. That's good.
Okay. I'm supposed to see you, or you're not supposed to see me. Disciple doesn't see the spiritual master. Spiritual master sees the disciple. Okay, somehow or other here. View. Let's see. I can't get full screen. Let me see how to do it. I'm not able to get a full screen. Must be a right way of doing it.
Yes, Maharaj. I'm trying to remember.
There must be a square box which you can click, Guru Maharaj. Is it somewhere?
Where? Here?
Somewhere in the on the screen on the bottom bit somewhere.
I can't see any in particular.
Or on the right corner top.
Yeah, I can see some of you, and I can see the screen, so I can't get a full screen. I'm only getting a half screen. That's even worse.
I think Maharaj, you can, no, I don't remember. Maharaj.
Let's see. There must be some way of getting a full screen here. Oh, okay. No.
If you could double click on the Zoom window, it will become full screen.
Okay. Where is it? Double click on.
Double click on the Zoom screen, Maharaj, whatever you are seeing.
Double click on the screen?
Yeah.
Doesn't do it.
That's what here it says.
Well, I'll try. I got a partial screen. Let's see if I can work with that anyway. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Navayam Klesha Bijani Yatrashu Purusharshabam Purusham Tavigyani Mo Vyakta Beta Vimohitaha. Translation. The greatest among human beings, it's very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our suffering, because we are bewildered by all the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. I'll read it again. So the personality of religion is responding to Maharaj Parikshit's question, who has caused this suffering for you? And he answers, O greatest among human beings, it is very difficult to ascertain the particular miscreant who has caused our sufferings, because we are bewildered by the different opinions of theoretical philosophers. There are many theoretical philosophers in the world who put forward their own theories of cause and effect, especially about the cause of suffering and the effect on different living beings. Generally, there are 6 great philosophers. Kanada, the author of Vaisheshika, philosophy, Gautama, the author of logic, Patanjali, the author of mystic yoga, Kapila, the author of Sankhya philosophy, Jaimini, the author of Karma Mimamsa, and Vyasadeva, the author of Vedanta Darshana. Although the bull, or the personality of Godhead, and the cow, the personality of the earth, knew perfectly well that the personality of Kali was the direct cause of their sufferings, still, as devotees of the Lord, they knew well that without the sanction of the Lord, no one could inflict trouble upon them. According to the Padma Purana, our present trouble is due to fructifying of seedling sins. But even those seedling sins also gradually fade away by execution of pure devotional service. Thus, even if the devotees see the mischief mongers, they do not accuse them for the sufferings inflicted. They take it for granted that the mischief monger is made to act by some indirect cause, and therefore they tolerate the sufferings, thinking them to be God-given in small doses. For other eyes, the sufferings should have been greater. Maharaj Pariksit wanted to get the statement of accusation against the direct mischief monger, but they declined to give it on the above-mentioned grounds. Speculative philosophers, however, do not recognize the sanction of the Lord. They try to find out the cause of suffering in their own way, as will be described in the following verses. According to Srila Jiva Goswami, such speculators are themselves bewildered, and thus they cannot know that the ultimate cause of all causes is the Supreme Lord, the personality of Godhead. Om Gyan Timidandasya Gyana Jana Salakaya Chaksun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namam Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prastaya Bhutale Srimakte Bhakti Vedanta Swami Niti Namani Namaste Saraswati Deve Gauravadi Pacharine Nirvisesa Sunyavadi Paschatya De Satarine Jayasi Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhar Sri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So without answering the question, they give the reason why they don't answer the question. And that is there are different theoretical opinions of what is the cause of one's suffering. There are 6 great philosophers who have given 6 standard philosophies which we accept as the essence of all philosophical knowledge. We have Vaisheshika, we have logic, we have mystic yoga, Sankhya, we have Karma Mimamsa, and we have Vedanta Darshan. Of course, Vedanta Darshan by Vyasadeva is superior to all of them and includes the principles of the other ones, but it concludes with the proper understanding. But here it's interesting to note that because the bull and the cow were personifications of Dharma and the earth, they knew the truth. But still, in order to teach and to explain clearly, they didn't give any indications. And they said, well, we're bewildered. There's so many ideas. And you'll find that what is the cause of suffering? And then you'll see within the next few verses, different theories are put forward as one of the reasons why a person is suffering. Generally, if someone directly causes some suffering, you blame that person. But the bull and the cow are not going to do that because they know there's much more to that understanding than what meets the eye. They know that the person who is actually doing it, causing the suffering, is simply an instrument. And he is not the mischief maker. He is simply put in that position because he also has to undergo some suffering. But he is not the cause of the suffering that he causes. Behind it, there is a remote cause, And of course, Prabhupada ends the personality of Godhead is the cause of all causes. But Krishna also says, I'm not the cause of anyone's happiness and distress. So Krishna also says, even though I'm the cause of all causes, and the happiness and the distress that one undergoes is not caused by me. It's caused by the material energy. But the material energy works under his control. So ultimately, behind the scenes, the personality of Godhead, but he's neutral. He's not actively giving suffering or enjoyment in a material way to the conditioned souls. But he puts in the system by which the conditioned souls act, and by that system, one gets suffering or enjoyment accordingly. And the different players play a different role in bringing about the reactions that a person is meant to receive under the influence of the material energy. So it's interesting here. I'm a little hesitant to go into the deeper understandings because each of these verses, one after another, reveals more and more of this topic. And we'll approach some of these points in the upcoming verses. But the essence here is that although Kali's there, Kali did the work, still they don't blame Kali for some reason. And they point that, yeah, there are many theoretical philosophers. They give their own opinions. What is our position? So we undergo suffering and enjoyment regularly as devotees. We enjoy sometimes some material benefits, and we also suffer some material difficulties. Srila Prabhupada would say that if you have a material body, that is the foundation by which all suffering comes. Just to have a material body is one of the reasons why a person suffers. It's the main reason, actually, because the soul never suffers. The soul is aloof from the happiness and distress that come upon the mind, the senses, the intelligence, any of the faculties that make up the living entity's existence are superfluous to the living entity who is a pure spiritual being and cannot be touched by material happiness or distress. But it appears like it. So our happiness and distress is similar to what happens in a dream. What does that mean? It means that we dream at night, and sometimes we dream about something very pleasant. We call that a good dream. Something very unpleasant, we call that a bad dream. But nothing is happening to the person because it's being done on a mental platform. It's not happening at all. Because also sometimes there's physical reactions in a dream too. Just like sometimes, a person will see a beautiful girl or boy in a dream, and there'll be some explosion in the dream. So that happens even on the physical level. So, but ultimately, that's an analogy to help us understand that in the material world, whatever happens on the material level is not happening to us at all. We as souls don't touch the material energy, but because we identify with the body as ourself, and the body is so much connected to the soul's existence, or the soul's connected, the body, we actually believe that I'm undergoing suffering, I'm undergoing happiness, but none of this is actually really happening because the soul is nahanyate hanyamani sarire. It is not burnt, cut into fire, burnt by the wind. Krishna explains all these statements. And withered by the wind, burnt by fire, cut into pieces by weapons. None of these things can happen to the soul. The soul doesn't touch matter, and matter cannot touch the soul. Even if the body is completely destroyed, the person still exists. But because of our attachment to the body and the activities of material life, we experience happiness, distress, just like we experience happiness and distress in a dream, although it's not really happening to us. Well, this is basically a basic understanding of. Therefore, the cow and the bull, especially the personification of religion in the form of bull, refuses to blame anyone for what's happening to them. They start off by responding, saying there's different opinions of why our suffering is why we are suffering. Is it this reason? Is it that reason? There are many philosophers, many expert philosophers too, who can't agree. Stita D. Muni is a type of philosopher who does not agree with other philosophers. It says if you want to be a good philosopher, you have to have your own philosophical opinion. And then you're a good philosopher. You have to different from everyone, then you're unique, and people accept that type of understanding as their way of belief. But ultimately, we don't touch the material energy, and that will be brought out in some of the upcoming verses. So, and you might say that even material happiness is another form of suffering. It's mentioned also. Prabhupada said even the benefits that one gets from material activities, particularly if the activity is connected with the mode of goodness, then those benefits are also another form of suffering, because they take the soul away from its actual identity and make one think that material happiness is actually the goal, or the thing, or actually is something one should strive for or achieve. And therefore, it's another form of suffering, because anything that takes one away from their relationship with the Supreme Lord is ultimately a cause of suffering, because suffering actually begins when we leave the association of Krishna. That's the initial cause of suffering. And once we leave Krishna, then there's so many other activities we perform that create different kinds of suffering based on the initial suffering. Just like some people think, well, I'm suffering so much that I can't even live anymore. I want to end my existence. It's interesting. I was just with one of my friends today, and he was telling me there was one devotee he wrote on his social media that he's going to commit suicide today here in Mayapur. This was in Mayapur today. So he was actually going. He went down to the banks of the Ganges, and he was going to jump into the Ganges and drown himself. He was about to do that when this friend of mine came along with another devotee, because they read on the social media that he was about to do it, and they grabbed him just before he jumped into the water, and they saved it. And then they brought him out. He was only a 21-year-old young Bengali boy. So a person thinks, well, suffering is so bad, but therefore, how can I live anymore? They see no way out of their suffering. And they think by ending their life, they will end their suffering. But the scriptures explain that the body is given to the living entity for a particular purpose. And to destroy that body is to destroy the relationship with the person who gave you that body, which is the Supreme Lord. Through your parents, you receive a body. So the body actually belongs to the Supreme Personality of Godhead because he created material energy and he puts in place all of the players that bring about other material bodies, such as fathers and mothers. And the body belongs to the Lord because it's made out of material elements, which are his energy. Bhumirapana balobayu kamana buddhi vacha ahankar iti amme bina prakriti astada. Earth, water, fire, air, ether, mind, intelligence, and folk ego. Krishna explains in the Bhagavad Gita, these are my separated parts and parcels. But aparayam iti tvanya jiva bhuta mahabhaho yedam jayate jagat. There's another energy, which is the spiritual energy, which is distinct from these 8 material energies. So it's the soul that's not happy, but it identifies with the mind, and therefore the mind causes one to act and think in whatever way it wants us to think. And therefore, when people think I'm suffering so much, suffering is another form of mental concoction, because we can accept something that's happening to us as suffering, or we can accept something that's happening to us as something wonderful for our spiritual benefit. We have this example of one very elevated spiritual master in our society, and that was Bhakti Tirtha Swami Maharaj. He came down with a very, what we say, terminal disease, melanoma cancer, and which gets into the bones. When the cancer gets into the bones, it's pretty much, there's nothing you can do at that point. And so at one point he was undergoing a lot of physical pain. And he was saying, he was with Radhanath Swami one time, and he was saying, it doesn't get any better than this. It doesn't get any better than this. He was listening to Radhanath Swami speak some of the pastimes from Chaitanya Charitamrita. He was absorbing himself in these pastimes. His body was undergoing tremendous amount of suffering. That day was one of these worst days, as was described. But yet he was able to absorb his consciousness completely in the transcendental nectar of the Lord's pastimes and feel a sense of happiness overcame him, that even though the body was undergoing so much pain, the mind was focused on a higher reality, on the real reality. So there are people who can do that. There's many materialists who have the power of mind. Prabhupada talks about Stalin, the very powerful ruler of Russia. And he had to undergo a particular operation, some operation on the stomach. And the doctor wanted to give him an anesthesia, but he said, no, I want to watch the operation. And so he did. There was no anesthesia. And he's watching his own operation. And he had such a power of mind that he could do that without being disturbed. There's others who are on the transcendental platform, they can also do that. The body is suffering, but the mind is situated nicely at the lotus feet of the Lord, feeling another energy, pure energy, and uplifting energy. And so pain and pleasure materially are all illusion, because they apply to the body itself. There's an old saying, it's kind of like a little statement of information that says, pray, let's see, what is it? Pain and what was it? Happiness and distress is all the same, only different in name, that's all. Like that. if you're suffering, say you're undergoing some pain, and you think about the pain, that pain will be more intense. You take your mind away from the pain, bring it to another level of consciousness, you can reduce the effects of that suffering. And when you are completely on the transcendental platform, then there's no material happiness and no material distress. One is experiencing the happiness of the soul's connection with the Supreme Lord in devotion. Okay. So these are some theories go around that one should not try for happiness. One should not try to avoid suffering, because happiness and distress will come automatically simply by living in this world. So when it comes, you learn to tolerate the suffering, you learn to tolerate the happiness, and you go on with your devotional service. Like that. Right. The materialists, what are they doing? They're always trying to get rid of the suffering and bring about some kind of pleasure. But they struggle all the time just to do that. Everything they do comes around these 2 points: mitigate suffering, increase happiness. But even though they try, as the verse says, tasyaito hetu pratite na kovito, na labhyate tad brahmata uparyada, na labhyate dukkanavat anyasukyam kalena sarvatra gambira ramhasa. That if you're destined to get happiness, you'll get it, whether you try for it or not. If you're destined to get suffering, you'll get it, whether you try to avoid it or not. It'll come simply by your karmic collection. It comes automatically. That's why people can't understand why suffering comes, because it's automatic simply by your activities in the past and in the present. But devotees don't worry about that. They simply engage in devotional service. They tolerate the happiness and they tolerate the suffering. Tolerating the happiness means they don't allow material happiness to deviate their consciousness away from Krishna consciousness. And they don't allow the suffering to do the same either. Okay, so we'll stop there.
Hare Krishna. Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Such a wonderful class. Dear devotees, if you have any questions or comments or realizations, you can please go ahead and please turn on your cameras if possible. Thank you. Maharaj, I have a question. Like when we are talking about in the purport, the bull and cow, they are not blaming anyone for their sufferings. So I was thinking, like, why actually we blame? Like, how the tendency of blaming another person will come into us, Maharaj?
Because we see that a person is doing something, and because they're doing something, it is causing us some suffering.
So we know that it is not a good thing.
Everybody reacts like that.
Hmm.
But if Krishna protects one, no one can do any harm. And if Krishna doesn't protect, no one can protect themselves.
Hmm. So this blaming is very wrong thing, right, Maharaj? Or
You'll see, that verse will come up in a few verses.
okay.
Verse 22 will be the answer to the whole discussion. But the next 2 verses turn the philosophy of suffering from different angles of vision. So it concludes, and then Maharaj Parikshit's response to the personality of Dharma is the answer to the whole discussion.
Mm.
So I'm not jumping ahead.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. We'll
Those
wait.
discussions will come up in the negative. Right now, we're talking about suffering, just in general right now.
Yes. Yeah. Thank you, Maharaj. Raj Prabhu, you want to go ahead? Your question.
Thank you. Hare Krishna, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to Guru Maharaj, all glories to all of the devotees. Maharaj, so the soul does not suffer. The body is made of matter. So what exactly is suffering?
What exactly is suffering? Separation from Krishna.
So if our karma is giving us suffering, does that mean it's giving us separation from Krishna?
No, we're already separated. Therefore, the cause of suffering has already been really already manifested. We left
Okay.
Krishna, therefore we're suffering. There's two reasons why. One is that we think we can live happily without him. That's one cause of suffering. The other one is that because we have natural love for Krishna, we're not finding any happiness in anything else in this world, although we try. Krishna is the source of our existence, and we are eternally connected with him. He says that in Sarvayona Shikontaya Sambhava Bambi Mahatya Tasavaham Aham Bija Patam Pita. All life comes from me. We are part of Krishna. He is spirit, and we are also spirit. He is complete spirit. We are a fraction of that spiritual existence.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Thank you, Prabhuji. Tirthakirti Mataji, you raised your hand. Do you have a question? Or Krishna? Dear devotees, any more questions or comments? Until Mataji comes back. Shri Krishna?
I don't think she has a
So
question.
sorry that
Oh.
this is Sri Devi Dasi here in
Okay.
Tirthakirti Mataji's home. She invited me over. So I may please accept my humble obeisances, dear Guru Maharaj. All glories to Prabhupada. So Guru Maharaj, on this point of the bull and the cow not blaming anyone, we understand that ultimately everything is coming from Krishna. So does that mean when we see injustice or wrongdoing or someone being subjected to some unfair treatment, we should conclude that this is their karma, or even if it happens to us, it's our karma, and
No.
not say anything?
No, the duty of the living entity is to try to relieve the sufferings of others. Human life means to do good to others. So you have to intervene if you have the power, the ability, the intelligence. If you can mitigate someone's suffering, then you should do that. Why do we have doctors? Doctors are there, and even in the Vedic culture. Why do we have so many group? The whole society is geared on providing benefits for other living entities. So that's important. We do that. But, as Prabhupada says, ultimately, if Krishna wants someone to suffer, he doesn't want anyone to suffer. But if he allows someone to suffer, even your medicines and all your good wills and all your help can't do anything. And even if there's nobody there to help, if Krishna wants, he can remove that suffering of that living being. We had an example of one devotee. He was a new devotee. He was in jail. He got COVID during that time. And he got no medical care and treatment at all. He was left alone in his jail cell. And he simply chanted the holy name of the Lord and prayed to the Lord during that time without any care at all. And after a week, he was cured of the disease. He had faith simply by chanting. As an example of how, if Krishna wants to save someone, they'll get saved. Or, there's the intricacies of karma and suffering and enjoyment are so difficult to understand because there's such a complexity of activities and consciousness in it that's thrown into the mix that no one can really point that this is the cause. But the ultimate cause is we come to the material world and we try to enjoy separately from Krishna. We're beginning the process of suffering just simply by that.
Mataji, do you have any further comments?
Thank you very much. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Maharaj. Silpesh Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. So Maharaj, suffering is pretty much inevitable in this material world, but I'm not on the transcendental platform. So when sufferings come, how do we see the greater good in it?
Yeah, you have to see through scripture, not through your own experience. You apply the knowledge that's given to you by Guru, Krishna, and scripture, and then you can understand how to react or not react. But generally, when we undergo something that is defined within the category of suffering, we learn how to tolerate that. We can accept it as something that has come by way of some activity we did in the past. Tolerance falls into two distinct definitions. And one is, they're both brought out by a particular verse. Marta sparsus tu kunteya sitnosna sukha dukada agapayino nityas tam titiksu. The non-permanent appearance and happiness and distress are like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They rise from sense perception, O ski and abart, and one should tolerate them without being disturbed. So yeah, this living in the material world, there will be distress because we have a material body. But that distress will go, and then some so-called material happiness will come for a little while, and that will go, and then happiness. So it goes back and forth based on the body. The body is like that. One day, we got a pain. We don't know where the heck the pain came from, and it's there, and then all of a sudden it's gone. We feel some relief, and we think, oh, I feel better. And so happiness and distress based on the body and mind are flickering. They're transient. They come and go. But then there's another kind of tolerance that is explained. Tatenu kompa shushamikshamanam. Pujane Vakritam Vipakam Vidva Vapupir Vinadam Namaste Jiveti Yo Mukti Padesha Dayabak. That the Lord, a devotee prays to the Lord, my dear Lord, you put me into this difficult situation, and it's simply due to my misdeeds. And therefore, I offer my obeisances to you and understand that actually the suffering that you are allowing me to undergo is just a small token to what I really deserve. So therefore, I am grateful for this situation, because now I can take full shelter unto you. And one who prays like that, Mukti Padesha Dayabak, the last line says, then they inherit the kingdom of God. They're qualified to go back home, back to Godhead.
Maharaj, what verse is that from? That prayer?
Where is the verse?
Yeah.
10th canto, 14th chapter, verse number 8. 10, 14, 8.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
And nice purport too. Long. Happiness comes, distress comes. Even when one is a devotee, they might be put into difficulties. Prahlad Maharaj was put into difficulty, but he didn't even blame his father, who was apparently the perpetrator of his the suffering that he had to undergo. But he never complained. But he took shelter of Krishna. Without taking shelter of Krishna, then you're lost.
How do we take that shelter?
Krishna save me. Cry out to Krishna, call out to Krishna, chant from the heart. What are we afraid of? It's called lauyam. Lauyam means intense desire to achieve the mercy of the Lord. Coming to the platform of intense desire means to understand my position in the material world, which is very precarious. No one can guarantee anything. We think, oh, I'm going to live a long time. I'm this age, therefore I have so many years left. But that's not guaranteed. So being in the material world means being in a uncertain situation. Anything can happen at any time. You can get on a plane and the plane can crash. Duh, these things happen. You get in the car, you're driving, some drunk driver comes along and boom. It's like one of our temple presidents. He was driving along the road, and this was in Germany, and it was somebody driving on the wrong side of the road. And it was a head-on collision, and he died in that collision. So you might say, well, that was the fault of that other person. But then again, maybe Krishna used that to take him back to the spiritual world. When Prabhupada was in Mauritius is like India. They drive on the left side of the road, just like the UK, they drive on the left side of the road. There's only a few countries in the world that drive on the left side of the road. The rest drive on the right side. But Prabhupada was driving, and all of a sudden somebody was driving on the wrong side of the road, and the car Prabhupada was in had a head-on collision with this oncoming car who was on the wrong side of the road. Prabhupada kind of sensed something was happening before it happened. He was sitting in the back seat, and he took his cane and put it firmly into the floor and held onto it. And right after that, there was that head-on collision. Prabhupada got a cut on his leg because of that crash. So yeah, that if you read the pastimes of Prabhupada in Mauritius, this is 1975 or 76, I think it was. Yeah. So even Prabhupada was put into a very life-threatening situation. You never know. That's why there's only one solution. Always remember Krishna. Not remember Krishna. Always remember Krishna. Don't forget Krishna. And even if something happens, you're protected by Krishna. Or if Krishna wants, he can take you back home simply by a situation. If you remember him at the time of your departure, then life is successful.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Sakshi Mataji, you have a question?
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Maharaj, I just wanted to know at what level of devotional service this maturity comes, where we are no more concerned about happiness or distress.
It can come any minute. It doesn't come automatically at a certain level. You can have it when you first begin, or you can never have it. It's up to you. The philosophy is there. Everything is given to us. How much we take it, that's up to us. Prabhupada said you can be Krishna conscious in one moment, or you can never be Krishna consciousness in thousands of lifetimes. So it's up to you how much you apply yourself to the process.
Thank you, Maharaj. Maharaj, how to apply this? I mean, I always fall apart.
Just keep chanting. Chant all the names. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama. Krishna's name is Krishna.
Yes, Maharaj. Thank you so much.
Associate with the highest form of spiritual energy in the form of Krishna by chanting his holy name. Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna. Well, sometimes I have to travel in Mayapur and I get rides on the back of these motorbikes. And we go along bumpy roads, and sometimes the drivers are fast. And I'm sitting on the back holding, but when I get on, I'm thinking, we're going to make it or not? But then I start chanting and I think, it's nice. It doesn't matter anymore. I'm chanting. Everything is fine. No worries. Just chant. We change the whole atmosphere simply by our consciousness. Reality is subjective. There is an objective reality, but that's another thing. Our perception of reality is based on our consciousness. Bring Krishna into your consciousness, and you become Krishna conscious. And that's the goal. Then when you're Krishna conscious, you simply depend on Krishna. That's all. But if you don't think of Krishna, then how can you really get his full mercy? He'll give you some mercy even if you forget him, but you get the full mercy when you remember him.
Thank you, Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you, Mataji. Nice question. Sonal Mataji, you can please go ahead.
Hare Krishna Maharaj, please accept my obeisances to you and all the devotees. I have this one question regarding suffering and medical treatment. We see in the world that there are many people who go to extreme extents to keep just the body alive. So as a devotee, is there any are there any rules where should we draw a line that I'll not cross this line to just save the body?
Well, it's your duty to try to do whatever you can to avoid sickness and to keep yourself functioning in the particular body you have. That's your duty. But you shouldn't do it in such a way that that becomes the only concern. That's part of life. Self-protection is automatically there. The body is dearer to the soul because the soul lives within the body. When the demigods came to Vishwarupa, no, not Vishwarupa, who was it? Dadachi. And Krishna sent them, Vishnu sent the demigods to Dadachi. They needed a weapon to kill Vitrasura, a big, powerful demon who was actually a devotee in the body of a demon. So Dadachi had performed austerities and his body was like steel. And in order to make this weapon, they needed the bones of the body of Dadachi. The demigods came and made their plea that, you know, you're very magnanimous and so many things. You're very concerned about the welfare of others. So we have come, we want your body so we can take your bones and make it into this weapon that's given to us by Lord Vishnu. Dadachi was inclined, but he said, don't you know what you're asking for? Don't you realize how dear the body is to the soul? And so he kept testing them just to see how they would respond to his statements, that they were asking for something that was really difficult. But Dadachi did that just to make the point that the body is very dear to the soul. But at the end, after making his point, he gave the demigods his body. And they took his bone, and that's how Indra got his what we call thunderbolt weapon, which is a very powerful weapon. He throws that. When he throws it, the whole universe shakes. You see, when lightning comes, lightning and thunderbolt, that thunder is Indra's weapon. If it hits something, it can burn a tree to the ground. It can hit a house, burns it to the ground in no time. If it hits a mountain, it can destroy a mountain. Very powerful weapon. So Dadachi agreed, but he didn't agree initially because he wanted to make a point. But he gave his body because he knew that was the will of Vishnu, so he did it. So the body is very dear to the soul, and one should try their best to keep the body alive. One should keep it healthy. Prabhupada said, make sure you keep your health, because if you don't have your health, it's very difficult to do your service, and your service is your connection with Krishna. So Prabhupada said, health is very important. Keep your health. But we should do it in a way that we don't overwhelm ourselves with the idea. There are people who are hypochondriacs who always think they're going to be sick at any moment. So they're always constantly taking care of their health. That's not a devotee. The devotee does what is needed, basic hygiene, basic health care. Sometimes when things get sick, then one will do something more direct and long-term, take up a type of medicine, type of cure. So that's our duty. We shouldn't neglect the body.
Thank you very much, Maharaj. Thank you.
Thank you, Mataji. Raj Prabhu, before you go into your question, we have a question on chat. by Rishabh Prabhu. Maharaj, Rishabh Prabhu is asking, one of the Shaktis of Maya is to make us think we are happy in this material world, separated from Krishna. Can we say that suffering is taking away this Shakti from us and we start to feel the separation from Krishna?
Yeah, suffering is a wake-up call. For those who are in illusion about material life. If Krishna will try so many ways to make you a devotee, he will send a spiritual master, he'll come personally as an incarnation. He'll empower his pure devotees to write books about him. He'll manifest himself in the form of a deity for personal worship. He'll come in the form of prasadam to give transcendental happiness. So many ways the Lord is making, but if nothing works, then he'll give you suffering. All right, you don't want the nice way, just like it says, parent says, the parent is giving direction to the child rejects all of it. No, the parent said, all right, now I'm going to punish you. Well, that's Krishna. He allows suffering to come just to wake us up. Well, just, you can avoid suffering, just take the Krishna consciousness.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Raj Prabhu, you can go ahead.
Thank you. Maharaj, when suffering comes, are there specific lessons to be learned each time? Or should we just not worry about that from chance?
Yeah, there's always some lesson to be learned. Not only for suffering, but everything that happens in life can give you, if you're looking for something to learn from, every moment is a learning experience.
And how do we learn?
By understanding what is beneficial for my spiritual life and what is not beneficial. And avoid and reject those things which are contrary to your progress in spiritual life and accept those. Sometimes we accept things like suffering as being favorable to our spiritual life. Because in many cases, it is. And sometimes material happiness, which comes in one way or the other, will bring one away from Krishna. I can give a material example. In America, they have what is called the lottery. You go into a grocery store and you buy something and you pay $1 and you get a lottery ticket. And then after so many months, they have a drawing, and the person who has the ticket with the number that they draw wins millions of dollars. So and it goes on regularly, and people get so many millions of dollars. And so they did a follow-up survey on the people who won the lottery. And it was concluded that most of their life went to hell after they won the money. So what is happiness? What is distress? It's how you see things.
Thank you, Maharaj.
Hari Hari.
Thank you. Thank you, Maharaj. There is a question on chat again by Rishabh Prabhu. He's asking, to think of Krishna means we develop attraction or love for him. And that happens on higher stages. How is it possible to think of Krishna on lower stages? Please correct me if I have wrong understanding.
How to think of Krishna when you're not so advanced in Krishna consciousness? Well, try to serve the Lord. Service to the Lord is also, when you think about the service, you're actually thinking about Krishna through the process of serving Krishna. When you get more advanced, it becomes more and more easier to think of Krishna. When we start off, we think of Krishna in the terms of the service that we do to Krishna. So yeah, just absorb yourself in service. And chant your rounds, read the books. These will all awaken consciousness of Krishna. So when we come to serve. How can I serve? We're serving material energy. Now we can divert our attention towards the spiritual energy, devotional service. And then we become more and more aware of Krishna through the process of serving Krishna. We have to understand that all the activities that we perform ultimately is being offered to Krishna through the process of service to Krishna. To serve.
Thank you, Maharaj. Thank you so much. The devotees, any more questions or comments? Maharaj, I have a question. Like some people, due to their maybe their past life karma or Krishna's mercy, everything goes well for them, like whatever they plan in the life, and so they don't see any suffering in the world. When I talked to one of my relatives, she was saying that, is there any suffering here? She was saying in that way. So I was so surprised to see, because some people don't feel any suffering at all in this life. Maybe they are situated nicely in this material world. So how to bring them to Krishna consciousness? Like, I don't think they'll have any chance. Maybe Krishna's mercy will come, but
it's a little harder for them to come.
yeah.
But they'll get their suffering. If they're attached to anybody, they'll lose that relationship in due course of time. Their father, mother, parent, children, husband, wife, they'll all be gone in due course of time. Their body will be gone in due course of time. So much happiness based on these things means that the intensification of the suffering is also great. The more you are attached to the material world, the more when you lose it by way of providence, the more you suffer. A person who is rich and lost his money suffers more than a person who is poor and never had it.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. And we see so many innocent people suffering all the time. So is it due to their only past life karma, or like Krishna's plan, or how we have to see that?
You can't see the whole picture, no matter what situation we are in. But we can know that the laws of material energy are working. So Prabhupada said, pious or impious, both are impious because they lead us away from Krishna. Yeah, and so don't envy people who are apparently materially well off and seem to be not suffering. Realize that they don't think they're suffering because they accept material happiness as real happiness. But those who have knowledge understand material happiness is another form of suffering. Anything material takes you away from Krishna. Unless you connect it with Krishna, then it's beneficial.
Yes, Maharaj. Yeah. Thank you so much. Sridevi Mataji, you have a question?
That's Sridevi again, huh?
Yeah. Hare Krishna.
Yeah. Yes, please. Guru Maharaj, I have a question regarding this point of suffering, because the body is suffering. For myself, I can say that whenever I'm sick or I'm unwell and I cannot do my services as I want, I get very irritated, very frustrated. And then when it prolongs, then I start feeling very depressed and discouraged. And I keep thinking I'm not able to do anything, I'm so useless, and just a lot of difficulty because I cannot do the things I want to do. And then it's like a downward spiral in which it's really hard to even think of the things I could do, even with limited energy and so on. So how do we deal with these situations where we want to do something but we cannot do it?
Don't worry about it. Don't worry about it. Just go on with your Krishna consciousness. You can always chant, you can always read, you can always serve, you can always find opportunities to associate, you can always worship. Why do we put so much attention in other things? Material things, you can't. Material energy is called mutable, it's changeable, it's always changing. It's always changing. Come to the platform of no change, that's spiritual life. Don't worry about what's happening on the material level. Just deal with it by becoming Krishna conscious. That's all.
Okay, Guru Maharaj. Thank you.
Suki.
Okay, Mataji.
Hare Krishna, Guru Maharaj. Please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada, all glories to your lotus feet, and all glories to all the assembled devotees. Guru Maharaj, I've got two questions. So one is, like Srimati Mataji said, that the person who is in pure material happiness, if they don't come across anyone who's going to help them to understand Krishna consciousness, maybe it could be due to their previous karmas or anything, and they don't come into contact with Krishna consciousness, they don't know about Krishna consciousness, and suddenly as you mentioned, they go through all the calamities in their life. It is very hard for that person, isn't it, that how to come out of that. They start Krishna consciousness, they might come across Krishna consciousness later on, but how long they have to suffer all these things because they were just enjoying their pious activities.
Well, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make him drink.
But it wasn't their fault that they did not come across the Krishna consciousness.
They don't want to think about anything temporary. They want to think that their plans will give them continual happiness or pleasure. But karma runs out. Karma is like a silo filled with grains. What you're doing at the present, you're putting those things in the top of the silo. The silo is a long chute around, and at the very bottom it has a door. You open it up. So the things you get at the bottom are not the things you put in the top. Things you put in the top will come later as time goes on. So people might get their they're getting the results of their pious activities, and they're thinking everything is nice, but just give them time, and they'll get the results of their impious activity.
Yeah, that happens. I've seen so many people suffering like that. But it's I was thinking that when they are in very distressed state, they start going to Krishna, but it takes a long time for them to come out of it, and then they lose their faith again. So how do we make them understand that, look, this is what is going to help eventually, don't worry. And they said, oh, before we were not doing anything and we were fine. Now we are doing all these things, but still we are getting one problem after the other, one problem after the other. It is. So should we just tell them, keep chanting, please keep faith? Is that all?
They're getting free from their, when you make ghee, you put the butter, big block of butter on a slow flame. If the flame's too high, it won't work. It has to be at a very low flame. And gradually the fatty part separates from the rest of it, and then you have the clear liquid with the fat going at the bottom and at the top. So what's on the top is the impious activities coming out. You just take your spoon and you cut, and then you take those impurities off. So as the impurities are coming out in the form of difficulties, then you just tolerate that. That's all. Thank you, Krishna. You're just giving me some suffering. This is what I need to make advancement in spiritual life, purifying me from all of my previous activities. Nobody prays like that. Doesn't blame anybody, nor does it blame the process. Process works, but who knows how deep one's attachments are and how much karma they carry when they come to Krishna consciousness. No one can see that.
True. Very true. Also, second bit of it, Maharaj.
Just tell them, keep going in Krishna consciousness. All these things will pass. Don't worry. Just tell them.
Yeah.
It will.
Yeah.
These things will pass.
And in other hand, opposite to that, the person who's really in distress situation for long time after coming to Krishna consciousness, also nothing changes. How to make them understand that slowly it will change, Guru Maharaj? Because they said that, okay, you'd say that, okay, fine, we came to Krishna because we're doing so much, but still nothing is changing. It is very hard.
They're either executing the process wrongly,
okay,
or they are so deep in their material distress that it takes a while for them to clear it out. Most of the time, people think, oh, I'm going to be Krishna conscious, so I'm going to be happy. But it's not about trying to be happy. Happiness comes by way of Krishna's arrangement. Just try to serve. That's all. That's all. Just try to serve. If you want to just serve, and you'll be happy. If you're trying for happiness, you won't get it. You'll miss it. If you're trying for service, happiness will come. But we're always thinking, I'm going to serve in this way so I can be happy.
Oh, yeah, that is right. Yeah, it could be that, Guru Maharaj, you are absolutely right, that they must be thinking the other way. Yeah. Not thinking right Krishna consciousness. Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
For example, there's that story in the Ramayana, I think. There were these two demons, and they were brothers, and they wanted to kill the sages. So they would invite the sages over for lunch. And one demon would cook his brother for the lunch. And then that sadhu would eat that food, and then the brother would come out of the stomach of the sadhu and kill the sadhu.
Oh.
These two demons, they wanted to kill sages. They had the power. He had the power of cooking his brother, feeding it to the sages, and then he would come out of the stomach and destroy the sage. So they did that. But then they invited Agastya Muni. Agastya Muni is so powerful. He is really powerful. He's one of the most powerful of all the sages. So they tried. And then Agastya Muni, when he knew what was going on, so he ate. And because of his own power, that other demon couldn't come out of his stomach, and he wouldn't let him out. So he killed the demon that way. Agastya Muni was so powerful that there were some demons who went under the ocean to hide from. They were hiding there, and he drank the water in the ocean, and then he exposed all the demons, and they were killed. He's the one that gave. Agastya Muni was the one that gave Lord Ram, the arrow that did kill Ravana. He gave him that arrow. He said, use this only when you actually need it. So yeah. So demons will, people will try anything to destroy others. Just stay fixed in Krishna consciousness and you'll be okay.
Thanks, Sachi. Thank you.
Okay, we'll stop here.
Sure, Maharaj. Thank you so much. Thank you, dear devotees, for such a nice questions. We can meet again tomorrow. Thank you, Maharaj, for such a nice class and nice question answer session. We'll end the call here. Vancha kalpatarupasya kapasindhubhyo patitanam pavanebhyo vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Miss Candramauli Swami Maharaj ki jai.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Guru Maharaj. Hare Krishna.